A Stanford PhD with access to cutting edge AI technology worth billions just cashed out $7 million in company stock, copied their entire code base to his laptop, and walked straight into the offices of one of the company's biggest rivals. This isn't corporate espionage fiction. This is what Elon Musk claims that happened at xAI just a few weeks ago.
So the engineer in question, he was tweeting about how amazing his small team was while allegedly planning to hand over their life's work to OpenAI. So today we're diving into the most explosive tech lawsuit in 2025. Elon Musk is going after Sam again.
All right, it never ends with Elon Musk and Sam Altman. Welcome back to the podcast with Startup Hack and me, McKay. We talk all things big business, tech, finance. And this past week, it's been a little bit of slower news, but we have a few things that we want to dive into with you guys. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and let's dive into it. How you doing, Startup Hack?
We're doing great. All right. So there was a brilliant researcher who just torched his total career and potentially changed the entire AI landscape. The allegations against Zishan Lin read like a masterclass in how not to leave your job in tech. So we're going to break down exactly what happened and why this case could totally reshape AI companies protecting their most valuable assets. So one of the interesting things was Lee wasn't just an engineer. He was one of xAI's first 20 employees who had direct access to Grok's core development. So I can guarantee you that Elon's going to be putting some safeguards around the code base now at this point, because he was able to download the entire thing and walk out the door. And that's got to be terrifying for the xAI team.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's pretty much your worst fear, all your IP getting stolen in one zip file. I doubt it was like that much, but it makes it seem like quite that simple.
I think it probably kind of was, actually. So the core code around how to train the AI, the system prompts around it, and everything that they've built around it sounds like he was able to clone the entire repo and just walk out the door. So this is pretty normal with small startup teams where your code base doesn't have a lot of controls around it. It's kind of interesting. One of the things that Elon's prided himself in is how fast they've moved, but generally, like, being able to move that fast means you probably don't have all the safeguards that a huge company like maybe Google has on it. I know Google runs off of a mono repo, but I doubt anybody can clone the whole mono repo and walk out the door.
Yeah. So it looks like this guy was a Stanford PhD with 17,000 academic citations, basically an AI royalty. Looks like he joined xAI in 2024 when the company was still tiny and everybody was wearing multiple hats.
Yep. So he literally tweeted in July about how much he enjoyed his small group of talented people. So you either have to say one of two things happened. Either one, this was totally a quick shift, that something happened and something went down that he was like, whoa, I'm out. Or it was very cold and manipulative and very, very well thought through, right? And so, I don't know which one of these it is. He's kind of gone off the radar. I don't know really as much as, but the thing about it is he then walked back into OpenAI, right? And so he went to OpenAI with all of this. And of course, first thing Elon's going to do is start firing some lawsuits.
Oh yeah, no, this guy is one of the biggest silly gooses of the week. We can give him that award for sure. Because not only did he cash out, he took all the code. So it looks like he sold his stock on July 25th, and then started copying things over to his personal devices.
So it looks like he did it two tranches. He did one in June for 4.7 million, and then did another like 3 million in July. So it was probably more the first, where it was pretty calculated. Now, the interesting thing about that was, what will be interesting is Elon can also sue him. But my guess is he's also probably going to get the SEC involved as well. If you cash out 7 million of stock with a bunch of corporate espionage secrets and then bail, my guess is there's something that he's doing nefarious in the middle of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be curious to see if the criminal implications, because this is just like, it is just like theft, but making a technology doesn't really change. So I'll be curious to see if there's any criminal implications. But lawsuits like this take a long time, and unless they get a warrant or something, I'd be very curious to see how the criminal aspects of this play out.
Well, I will too, because Musk says that he didn't just, like, this isn't just him suing because of the 7 million cash out of stock. But he also said he didn't just grab a few files. According to Musk, he uploaded our entire code base, and that's quote unquote from Elon Musk. He says, and then he also said they're taking, and so he's saying that they're taking their features, which are superior to ChatGPT, and taking them over to ChatGPT. So, I mean, I know that a lot of these non-competes don't stand up in court, but this seems like pretty serious corporate espionage.
So, in order to sell stock of a private company like this, it isn't as easy as just going to your brokerage and hitting buy sell. You usually have to find a buyer, which for xAI wouldn't be too terribly hard. And
Right.
then the company is responsible for helping transfer the shares, the transfer agent. So, whoever is the xAI transfer agent. So, it wasn't like this could be done in secret. People had to sign off on the stock sale. So I'm sure it's not uncommon for engineers or early employees of xAI to cash out some stock. I'd be curious at what a percentage, how much of this was a percentage of, like, was this
How much he
100%?
owns.
Yeah. Was this 100% or was it like 10%? Because if it's 10%, then people probably wouldn't look another way. But if it was 100%, then that definitely should have thrown some red flags for the xAI investor relations team.
Well, and that's an interesting point because it definitely, my guess is that Elon's going to probably go put some safeguards around and probably say, hey, anytime somebody's coming in and selling a large share of stock, I need to know, or somebody and some executive team needs to know. And it's a good call out for early startups. I know one of the things that Microsoft's Bill Gates said is he said one of his biggest mistakes was he made too many millionaires early. He actually has been quoted in multiple times from saying that was one of the biggest mistakes that he made in the early days of Microsoft, was that because he made a bunch of people rich really quickly, they all left. And so, or like some went to semi-retirement, right? And he said that was one of the biggest mistakes because he lost some of his best talent early in the days because he made them too rich when they IPO'd.
That's funny. Jeff Bezos was on an interview and said that he wants everybody, like, makes a list of the richest people in the world, but he wants a list of people who made, like, the list that, like, the number is how many millionaires did you make, and he says that he would be amongst the highest on that list because he only kept like 10% of Amazon, and he said he just wanted to make as many people around him wealthy as possible. So I'd be interested to kind of put Bill Gates' ideology and first Jeff Bezos' ideology toe to toe and see who. I mean, they're both phenomenal companies. I think Microsoft might be slightly higher right now, but there probably was a time that Amazon was higher. So it's just a difference in managing styles, but I think that's interesting.
Well, I mean, he wasn't necessarily saying that he wasn't upset that he made so many millionaires. He was upset that he didn't tranche them out longer, right?
Yeah,
That he didn't somehow keep them with some gold handcuffs, that he let them like the day they IPO'd, suddenly he had half of his senior staff walk out the door because he made them too rich. And
yeah.
so he wanted to figure out. And so I think this was really early tech IPO days. And so, like, I think part of that was just strategy around what do you do to keep some of these people. And this would be a good question for Musk here, because somebody who was with xAI for less than 2 years, who was one of the most important people there, and then suddenly takes off. It seems like he already had accepted a job from OpenAI before this alleged theft occurred. His start date was set for August 19th, giving him weeks to plan this whole operation. So there should have been some telltale signs that I'm sure Elon's putting together, is my guess. But ultimately, at the end of the day, lawsuits will be incoming. Like, I mean, this guy is going to be defending himself and OpenAI because they hold a lot of they hold a lot of the culpability here too.
Yeah, no, it's when you leave a company, you sign some separation agreement, whether there's severance or tied. If you resign, there probably was any kind of severance. Um,
But
but
cashing out that stock had to have some implications too.
sure. But when you sign these documents, it's saying that you're going to return all company property and you won't speak bad about the company, and you're signing all of these things. So he probably will absolutely lose this lawsuit unless there's another side to the story, which there usually is. But when it's this black and white, it's going to be very tricky. But we'll keep an eye on it. So OpenAI wasn't named as a defendant, but they're obviously in the mix of this, and it puts OpenAI in this really tricky spot. Do you keep working with him knowing these allegations? What do you think?
I don't know, because the thing about it is that it will open the door for a massive lawsuit from xAI to OpenAI. If Elon can get any kind of proof that any of the Grok code ends up at OpenAI, if he can somehow prove any level of, and it could open the doors to a huge lawsuit. That more importantly, what could happen, which would be interesting, and part of the reason that we haven't seen OpenAI named yet in this particularly is because there could be a full corporate espionage attack that could come. And the bigger thing is not the money. Elon doesn't care about money. He's made that very clear over and over again. What he would want to do is go force OpenAI to open their doors and open up all their docs. Because if he could start being like, nope, you have to give me your entire code base to see where this code landed. And that could be a really scary thing from OpenAI's perspective if they have to open their doors to all their trade secrets.
Yeah, that would be fascinating for sure. So xAI security flagged suspicious activity on August 11th. The company immediately reached out asking him to return the stolen data. He hired a criminal defense attorney, not the exact movement of an innocent person. During a meeting on August 14th, he confessed to taking files and covering his tracks. But even after admitting guilt, investigators found additional stolen materials he hadn't disclosed. He handed over other devices, but allegedly withheld passwords to critical cloud accounts. Jeez, what a mess.
Yeah, it sounds like he's caught pretty red-handed. So I will be curious to see. I think the big question here to watch is to see if OpenAI washes their hands of him. I think they'll think he's too tainted, right? Like, you're not going to pick up a bag of money from somebody you think was a potential bag robber because you're worried that ink's going to explode on you, right? I don't think OpenAI wants to open that bag. My guess is they're going to stay a long ways away from this one, but it'll be interesting to see over the coming weeks.
I wonder I wonder if he and Musk got in a fight and he was trying to get back. I don't know. This seems like a pretty evil thing.
It was pretty calculated. It was clearly pretty calculated. I mean, you don't sell, like you said, you don't sell 7 million of stock, just arbitrarily for private stock like that.
Yeah. So xAI is claiming that this stolen technology, the stolen IP that this guy stole, would save billions of dollars in research. These are apparently foundational AI architecture code chunks that he took, and that the lawsuit suggests this could give OpenAI an overwhelming edge in the AI race. When you're writing a lawsuit like this, you want to make it sound as you're the victim as possible. So that's definitely what they're doing here. With AI companies valued in the hundreds of billions, these trade secrets are worth more than most countries' GDP.
Especially right now,
where
the hype cycle is.
And I mean, to one of your points here is it's kind of like Coca-Cola's secret recipe getting leaked to Pepsi. How big of a deal would that be? I don't know.
Well, and in this day and age, where there's so much hype around this, a lot can be said for this. So it'll be interesting because we're seeing a lot of different shift on these. I'm going to share my screen here really quick because I saw this and I thought this was a funny. Let me see. I'm not used to sharing on this. Well, so I don't know if you want to share. Oh, there we go. Let me share this here. So this was a quote from Mark Cuban, and I think this is really funny, right? He says, and so it's interesting. These are some of the early signs you start seeing of the bubble burst. And I think this will go to this, right? Because it talks about how much these AI secrets are worth. So Mark's starting to question this. It's interesting because he was pretty early proponent and one of the people who was really big on the AI is going to take over the world. But he says, if AI is going to destroy white collar jobs first, shouldn't we already be seeing occupational declines in office buildings, particularly in big cities where large employers are primarily based? Or am I missing something? So he's just going after one of these key indicators. And there's very few things you'll find me agreeing with on Mark Cuban, but I think that's, one of the things that is kind of interesting as we see this over the coming weeks and months, that we're these signs of the huge AI overtake, and so Musk is trying to say this is worth, as much as some countries' entire GDP. And unfortunately right now with the hype cycles, it is, but we're not really seeing that prove out into those huge, large, dominating GDP. We haven't seen any of it actually impact the GDP. We're not seeing offices decline. We're not seeing, we are seeing some talent hire changes, but that leads us kind of to the next part about, how well this AI talent war has been going for Meta.
Yeah. So we know that Mark Zuckerberg went on this huge hiring spree, big poaching spree, hiring superstars with I think we heard up to like hundreds of millions of dollars in pay packages. And then he saw some people head out the door just weeks after hiring. So you have the co-creator of ChatGPT left. They joined Meta and then immediately threatened to return to OpenAI. Other high-profile hires like Noam Brown left Meta's AI labs, citing internal dysfunction. Meta's spending millions on talent that won't stay, the exact opposite problem of xAI's situation. I wouldn't say the exact opposite. I say about the same as of the last story we just read. It sounds like xAI. I don't know what's happening over there that's causing people to do something so nefarious, but you know.
So what one of the differences is that Lee, who stole the stuff and ran out the door, has been with xAI for almost 2 years. Mark spent a ton of money, brought in all the biggest talent, landed here at Meta, and then now is doing their fourth reorganization within 6 quarters, fourth reorg of the AI department. Now, if you're sitting in a hot seat or if you're sitting in a job and your position has, you're there at Meta and your position has changed 6 times, right? Your boss, your org, like, how stable are you feeling, right? At least the thing about xAI is that they'd had the same team doing the same mission, build Grok. Like at Meta, they don't know if they're building goggles, if they're building the next, AI, if they're like the super intelligence, are they internal, are they external, are they open source, are they closed source? Like Meta can't quite seem to figure out what they're doing. And I think Zuckerberg tried to hire all these crazy people, lock them in a room and say, great, go do a think tank and come up with something brilliant. And I think it got there and everyone's like, wait, I thought there was a plan.
Yeah. To Will's comment here, I'll put it on screen really quick. It sounds like Meta hired a bunch of quarterbacks. That's great, but they need great receivers and other team members, or else they'll just show ponies. I actually agree with this. I think that Elon has kind of built xAI and he's put people in the right seats. And I think maybe Mark tried to buy his way to being number one, and you need to build something great to be number one. You can't buy your way there. So I'm very excited to see how Meta progresses through this. But yeah, no, it is interesting, all the substructuring within Mark Zuckerberg's restructuring with people leaving, which probably just makes it more confusing for everybody, and he has to restructure again, which is kind of funny.
And they're going to continue to restructure. I mean, I think this is indicative of the entire AI landscape right now. So I was doing some research last night, and the leading AI chief at Amazon, the one who's leading AI in the AWS, because Amazon has really disconnected teams. Like their AWS runs as its like entirely owned company. It doesn't do anything with like the shopping, right? So they have executives like inside each of the orgs. And when you're a company of, Amazon size, of course you're going to, and because the skill set's entirely different, right? Like the guys doing the fulfillment are going to be very different than the guys who are running AWS. But he said last night that there's less than 1,000 people that he would list as really core AI engineers in the entire world. Now, so this is a different skill set than you had in like software development, where there's millions of, really amazing software developers. There's less than 1,000. So people, so first of all, to those who are watching, like this is your call to jump in. There's no reason you can't break into that number. That's not an exclusive group. If you're, I get people all the time who are like, oh, I've been out of work for 18 months. I'm like, what are you learning? What are you studying? And they don't like really know. I'm like, dude, if I was out of work right now, the absolutely first thing I'd be doing is downloading Olama, learning Python, getting PyTorch running, and running some scripts. Even on my channel, I show you how you can build your own AI server for under $500, right? So like you should go check out those playlists. But like this is like, there's no reason to not break into that, because we see people squabbling over this. There's such a shortage of really good talent on this.
Yeah. Yeah, and to your point, AI can write code, but it doesn't build software or products or end-to-end solutions. So learning how to be the front, the middle, and the back of these software solutions, it's what's going to build into that being part of that 1,000-person list.
Yeah, and so it's an interesting part of this. And so I think the dysfunction we're seeing here to this is that this is part of the bubble bursting, right? And so when I say bubble bursted, they think that means the technology is going to go away. In no bubble burst did the technology go away. When crypto bubble burst, crypto didn't go away. Web 3.0 didn't go away, right? That's not the point. The point is that the bubble burst just means that the hype goes away, the money will dry up, and they're left with a fancy technology, because this is what happens over and over again. Technology doesn't sell. Sales, right? Like sales are the ones that get sales. So the technology will remain around. It's me curious to see what the industry does with it over the next 5 to 10 years, because we're clearly seeing a lot of the AI leadership saying that we're hitting some of our limitations.
Totally. Yeah, it's we're gonna go back into earnings season here in 2 or 3 weeks, and I think we'll have a lot more news cycle, lot more drama, a lot more product announcements. But when you're kind of in the middle of this awkward in between news cycles and everybody's just released theirs, I think Apple will have their WWDC here soon. It's Apple new announcement. When was it? It's September 9th. So in a week from today, we will have Apple's new announcement. So are they going to finally announce something with AI? I don't know. We're not going to quite be able to cover it in next week's episode, but the following week, or maybe we can do a late night special Tuesday night. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, I'm very excited to see what Apple's going to announce in a week. Do you have any ideas?
I don't know a lot about Apple, but I think one of the ones that's been really interesting to watch over the last 10 days has been watching NVIDIA. So NVIDIA had their earnings call. And one of the things that was really interesting is their gaming division and a lot of those other pieces showed really strong earnings, right? They were still off the charts in their earnings for the gaming. So what you can tell is that this is going down market, right? Because what was down and what's been negative for the last 2 quarters is their data center numbers. Their data center numbers missed expectations. And because of that, NVIDIA's had a rough week on the stock market. But that, I think what we're seeing now is we're seeing that technology push down. We're seeing that niche down that I've been talking about for the last 18 months. And so that's what's interesting, is you're seeing more workstation builds than server builds on AI hardware.
Interesting. I didn't draw that connection between the gaming and the workstation. So you think the gaming and workstation just they go together?
I know they are. The 5 series Blackwell chips are really good, and they're the best cost per watt. Who cares about cost per watt? You think Musk cares? I mean, he does it at a big scale, but I guarantee you where that cost per watt is on the little guys, right? Can you slap in a huge, like, what could have, so a Blackwell chip now in a cost that a small business can afford was something that was literally unachievable. So we were talking about $40,000-$50,000 to get an H100 6 months ago. Now you can get that for less than $9,000, right? Now you can get the 6,000 Blackwell chip for less than $6,000. So you just downsize that cost from an H100 to down to a 6,000. And now you've got a comparable chip that somebody like me on a small business can afford. Something sub 10,000 is not priced by accident. That's targeting your medium business, your medium to large business, because enterprise are the ones who can afford 50,000 plus. Your small and medium businesses, not a lot of small, but most of your medium businesses can find $10,000 in their budget.
Totally. Awesome. Well, Starter Pack, this has been fun. I enjoyed hearing your take on the xAI lawsuit, Meta's AI reshuffling again, and Nvidia's growth. I think we're starting to see the niche down, which you've pointed out. Do you have anything else?
I think that's all that we really have for today. As always, if you need help with your getting custom software built for your company, reach out starterpack.com/Spencer. But yeah, we love to build software for folks.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.